right.
Did we do it?
That's it. We're here. Can you hear me well?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah. I have a fan right here because it's so hot. So hopefully this doesn't disrupt the audio, but yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Jillian, welcome. I'm so excited to connect with you again.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. I'm very excited for your podcast launching, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, I recently saw that you've also launched your YouTube channel, which is great. I've binged all the videos and the meditations as well. They were great.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate it. I love long form content in my podcast, and I was like, let me see if I can like shorten it a little bit and give a little like little snippets of help. Sometimes I have a tendency to go on like side quests when I'm coaching, and so I'm like, let's see if I can hone it in, and it's been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, so I just want to start off with saying that what a great topic because I saw your video that you sent me um right before planning for the session, and I was like, oh, this is such a great topic that I want to dive into, which is basically opening up our intuitive gifts through self-connection. So before we dive into it, Gillian, I think you'll be better off explaining what you do exactly. I'm so interested in all the content that you put out with epigenetics, Ahai healing, and honestly, I don't know a lot about it, but I'm really interested to hear about it, and I'm sure everyone who's going to listen to this is also going to want to know what you do exactly.
Yeah, so I am a multidimensional coach. In
Mhm.
five-dimensional wellness, I really focus on treating the whole human, right? Like, there's so many places where you can go get physical healing. There's so many places where you can go get like energy work done, but I'm really honing in on bringing them both together. And the more I lean into it, it's through our own emotions and through our own self-connection. And so using the genetic blueprints to connect you in a very tangible way to yourself, and then using the energy healing to like deepen that connection. Because for me, in my journey, it was really, I was so disconnected from my body, from traumas, and from so much that had happened. I was just like, don't want to be here. I'm done. And so being reconnected back into myself and really learning to trust myself again is what I focus on with my clients, and allowing them to feel empowered without any of the extras. Because there's so much in the wellness space where like there's so many tools that are helpful, and I love that. Like I'm guilty of having some of them as well, because sometimes it's like you just need the easy button, which is awesome. But ultimately we have everything that we need to heal. And the more I think that we lean into that and connect with ourselves, it really helps us deepen that connection and deepen our own self trust to say, I don't need that. Like, there's so many ads on Instagram, and it's like, do I really need that? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that as well. There's so many ads and content out there on Instagram, and it's almost an overloaded way of kind of, basically kind of saying similar things, but you don't know which one to trust really.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's always in there. I think self-connection really makes a difference because it's all about discernment there, right? Kind of
Hmm.
noticing who do you connect with, whose energy is really pure, and what they are teaching as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with, my own journey, I've been guided to different like coaches and things like that, and I've
Mm,
always just trusted it. And it's funny because when you create relationships with people, sometimes it's like, but I want to keep working with them, but like I feel called to work with someone else. And
mm.
just trusting yourself, because just because you're not working with someone anymore doesn't mean anything about them. It just means that you're ready for a different energy, a different experience, and that's going to help you grow in a different way, and it expands us. Because you're right, like there's so much stuff that's fake on the internet, and they're like, buy this and it's a scam. And so it
Yeah.
really takes time to connect with yourself and say, is this something I need? Is this something, because even without the genetic blueprints, which literally tells you what you need as far as
Mhm.
supplements. So outside of that, if you don't want to do genetic blueprints, it's like, how do I connect with myself to be able to say, is this supplement something that's really for me? Or is it just something that I'm piqued interest on? And then I'm like, okay, I want to spend money on it. And then you're like just dumping money into it because it's not really supporting you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I find that actually. And I'll probably reach out to you at some point as well about this because I started learning Ayurveda and I've been practicing it for about 4 months and, just kind of learning the principles and, the whole trend with ashwagandha.
Hmm.
It's so out there, but and I learned through Ayurveda that actually it's like the quantity really matters
Yeah.
and the quality of the supplement really matters and whether it suits a certain without going into too much detail, but a certain dosha type, certain uh, person, what their exact type is. It really depends whether it's suitable for them. So there's this advice, kind of general advice given out there for everyone when it's actually really, really something we need to investigate a lot more into, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, some people actually tend to have higher cortisol levels just genetically. And
Mm,
so it's like when they have stress, they already have this higher cortisol level, like baseline. So
mhm.
even when they're stressed or when they're not stressed, it's already higher than the normal person's. So
Yeah.
that's someone that should be taking higher doses of ashwagandha, someone that should really focus on that 500 milligrams a day
Mm,
and really get the medicinal dose because they're needing that calm down. Where typical practices like meditation and stuff like that isn't going to help balance out their nervous system as much. They're needing that extra boost.
yeah, 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 yeah. Very interesting. So,
Hmm.
yeah, just before we dive into it, because I can ask you a million questions. It's so also interesting. Um, let's talk about the topic of self connection. So, when I watched your video, I actually went through your meditation as well, and it was
Hmm.
great. It came at the exact time that I needed it because I know recently a lot of people have been going through transition periods and feeling anxiety quite a bit. So yeah, so how do you use meditation for self-connection in your practices, or how do you recommend people use it for themselves as well?
Yeah, I honestly would say lean into it when you feel like it's right for you
Mm,
and get curious with what type of meditation works for you.
mm,
And I say that like today, the energy's just been different. Like I had an
mm,
energy healing client this morning and that was great. But like my blood sugar was off, and sometimes that feeds into like my client and connecting to them. But I always take time to like clear my energy after, whether it's through just sitting meditation or guiding meditation. But like today, I was like, no, I want to dance. I want to dance. I
yeah.
want to sing. And so I took time for myself before we got on this call to really like reconnect with myself and just put on something that made me shake my hips and like
Mm,
dance around the house, sing as loud as I wanted, and just allow that energy to move through me because ultimately meditation is just energy movement. And
yeah.
so many people think of it as like, okay, sit and close my eyes. And sometimes that's so needed. Like sometimes your nervous system just needs that. But I felt like for this call, I really needed to connect with that like feminine energy. Like, let's bring her up, let's get the confidence up so we can get
Yeah.
on the call and like really speak my own truth. And I think people forget that there's multiple forms of meditation. Some people hear it and they're like, I can't sit and do that. Like, my thoughts are all over the place.
Mm,
I I always have to take a deep breath when people say things like that, or like their emotions all come up when they sit down to meditate. And it's like, it's because you need to feel it. It's because you need that, like those thoughts to come up so you can just observe them instead of really going into them and, or
mm,
like judging them, right? Like, oh no, I'm so sad. Why am I so sad? Sometimes it's just, it's a feeling. It's a feeling that needs to
yeah.
move through. And so allowing this space for that. And sometimes, even in sitting in meditation, allowing yourself to hold the space for yourself while the emotions are coming is truly the deepest form of self-love because no one's really going to take care of you the way that you want them to because it's everybody's so different. And we all have these like exact ideas of we want to be loved in this super specific way. And the only person that can deliver that to you is yourself.
Yeah.
So by connecting with different forms and getting curious with meditation, and I think that's why I love meditation so much because it's like if I want to go on a walk and just notice everything, just notice what's going on around me, just notice the kinds of trees, the animals that I see without like having to go 10 thoughts ahead, without having to go, oh, that's a pretty bird. I wonder what kind of bird it is. Let me look it up really quick. Or I like that tree or that plant that they have. Let me look it up
Mm,
and see if I can get it at Home Depot later. Like, bringing it all back and just saying, huh. I really think that's pretty. And just kind of like smiling and let it make you happy is such a great form of self-connection because you're able to just be in your own energy without
Mm.
your ego or your mind coming in and taking you 15 steps ahead and then overwhelming your nervous system, which is the complete opposite of what we're wanting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, perfectly said. Because actually, funny that you said about the dancing part. Because I do that every time I'm about to like basically film something, or where I'm about to like where I can feel that my energy is like a bit depleted. I just start doing star jumps or like dancing or like shaking about, and it really does help. It really just the movement just uplifts your mood, and the way
Mhm.
you show up really makes a difference. So that is a great technique. Yeah, it's something I use, try and use as well.
Yeah. And it's so
Yeah,
fun. It's so fun. And especially for women, like it really gets you into your feminine energy. And like, what better place to do it than when you're at home and no one's judging you? Like, I
yeah.
laugh at myself all the time. I'm like, people would think I am so weird if they saw me dance in public. And I'm like, I don't even care. Like, I'm home. I'm gonna shake my butt. My dogs are like, what are we doing? This is great. They're just following me. And I'm like, yeah, guys, let's go.
Yeah,
But it really connects you in with your inner child because it's like you're just having a good time, and it's so often that we don't allow that anymore, and so it's like bringing that connection with that younger version of yourself, and it's bringing fun back to the table where like typically people take everything so seriously. Like this, I want you to have a great podcast episode out of this, right? Like I want you to get as much out of this for your audience as possible. And so it's like, it's a serious thing, but what does it benefit me if I come in not as myself and just stone faced when in reality I'm silly, I'm fun, I'm very emotional. I like move through emotions a lot every single
yeah.
day, but it's like I always allow that to come through in the way that it feels like my highest and best is coming through.
Yeah, love that. Love that. No, I'm all about that. So any more like, silliness, dancing, I welcome it all. No, it's great. One thing I wanted to ask you about was with the self-connection. You mentioned about a high energy healing. And I mean, I've not had experience with it, but I've seen, the work that you do, and I've just read up about it. It looks incredible. I mean, I'm a Reiki healer myself, so that's
Mhm.
something I practice with my clients. So how does a high energy healing differ compared to Reiki, or what exactly do you do in it?
Yeah, so I'm the same way you channel Reiki. I'm channeling
Mhm.
the energy. It's just from a different dimension. So Ahai is channeled from
Okay.
the seventh dimension, which is the dimension of angels and miracles. So it just it shifts everything, and it's interesting because I actually got trained as a level one Reiki healer before
Mm.
I went into Ahai. And I had some interesting experiences, but the high is just so different. Like there was so much changing in my life when I was using it consistently, where I couldn't even completely conceptualize what was happening, but I knew I was changing.
Yeah.
And I think, I have a friend that's a Reiki master and she's received a high from me. She's like, it just shifts for you. And the way she explained it, it's like Reiki kind of lovingly nudges you in the right direction to make the shift
Mm.
for yourself. A high is just making that change. And that way it's just happening. And so it's interesting because I never really knew how to explain it differently. And I'd always
Yeah.
compare it to Reiki. And then one time we were at an event together. She's like, it's not the same. She's like, I mean this like in the best way. It's just not the same. She's like, a high really just creates that shift. And she's like, where Reiki is just something that's gently kind of nudging you in the right way. But it's a very like feminine energy. And a lot of people are very relaxed during the session, similar to
Mm.
Reiki, but it's just makes things happen a lot faster. And so it's really interesting to see like how it affects people. And I always love to
Yeah.
hear when clients call me like months later and they're like, your session changed my life. Because it's like you do a session with someone and then they're kind of like just out there in the ethereal. You're like, let me know if you need anything. And
Yeah,
then they come
yeah,
back months later and they're like, I found the love of my life, or this completely changed everything for me. And I'm like, oh, wow, thanks. Thanks for letting me
yeah.
know.
Wow. I need a session from you.
Right?
Yeah. No, that sounds great. Yeah. I mean, with energy work, I just find it so soothing for myself as well. Like in terms of self work as
Hmm.
well. Because recently I was basically going through some health issues, and I was like getting some doctor's diagnosis, which wasn't really explaining any of my results. You know, it was saying sometimes it would come negative, sometimes they would think it's this or that. And really just doing more energy work and connecting, you know, on self. And I do self Reiki sort of every single day,
Hmm.
and try and do it as much as possible, feeling, oh gosh, okay, something's coming up. And it's like, it's kind of like way to regulate myself. And and that's really helped in terms of just regulating my symptoms as well, and you know, feeling that anxiety. Do you use a high energy for yourself as well as a self treatment?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And even in getting certified, our first 30 days, so like there's level one and level two, and level one is for just self-healing. And
Yeah.
so to get the level one certification, we had to go through 30 days of sending ourselves a high every other day.
Mm.
And I just felt so light. I felt like there were years and years of trauma just kind of falling off of me. And I felt so
Yeah.
much more confident and I felt so much more connected with myself. And it was so interesting because I did a podcast episode that was Flip the Host, and a friend of mine came on and was a stand-in host. And something she asked me, I think it was like the favorite thing about connecting with yourself. And I surprised myself because I was like, I just love being in my own energy now.
Yeah.
Where so much of my life I was like, who am I? I don't even want to be here. Like, I don't even know the point of this. And so, really, like, it's placed me back in my body and it's allowed me to like reconnect with myself and to see certain things about myself, like in shadow work that maybe I wasn't proud of, but it allowed me to like really integrate everything and with minimal judgment. So I was able to fully love myself for who I am without going, okay, but I'm this way and it's bad. And that doesn't matter. Like, and I mean, a great example I'll use is like having drinks on occasion, right? Like I was in New Orleans this past weekend. Like New
Yeah.
Orleans, I was like, I have to get a daiquiri. I'm in New Orleans. Like that's kind of the thing when in Rome. And so I'm like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have a couple drinks. And I did. I paid the price the next day because I'm super sensitive to it. But like it was the experience, and it wasn't to disconnect from myself. It was just a way to like, okay, let me see like what this is about, see and have fun. And I had a great time. But so many people judge themselves for that in the spiritual space because they're like, oh, I'm not spiritual enough now because I had a drink. And it's just not true.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that resonates so much. Yeah, definitely. I find myself judging a little bit, you know, just when, especially in summer, you know, you just want to have one. Yes, okay. It's just one, you know, you're not going over the limit. But like you said, you know, you're in New Orleans. This is the one time you're going to go for it, or if it's a special occasion, it's okay. I think it's really to allow yourself to be present in the 3D world as much as your spiritual world. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I do get the judgment because I felt that for a long time, and then I realized actually, is it is it really serving the higher good, or is it actually because I am doing it for others, you know, when it's actually more
Mhm.
for ourselves?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest point, right? And even with sending myself a high, there's so much divine love entwined into it that it's like you see it and you're like, if that was a friend, I wouldn't judge them that way.
Yeah.
And so it really like held that mirror up to me and it made me see myself from this divine love place and embody that and start to say, you know what, it's okay if I'm not perfect, which is
Yeah.
something I've dealt with my whole life. Like my deep rooted things are not being good enough in perfectionism. So like going into something and wanting to be perfect at it, especially as a healer,
Yeah.
when it's never perfect because everyone's gifts are so different. You know, even though so many people are trained in the same modality, it's like you bring it's it's entwined within your own energy.
Mm.
So everybody gets a different experience, even if it's the same modality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like it depends on the healer rather than the
Hmm.
just the healing modality itself. It's like, you would go to a certain healer because there's something that resonates within you with their energy, and
Hmm.
you kind of automatically are gravitated towards them, and then you realize, okay, they were the right healer for me, or you have that connection. Yeah, I totally get that. Um, you mentioned feminine energy quite a few times. I love actually the whole idea of feminine energy. Just for the viewers, I know there are some people in the space who are new to feminine and masculine energy. So, um, yeah, just kind of explaining the difference. In your view, how does feminine energy differ to masculine energy? And you mentioned being in this feminine energy is so important for us, and to really be able to channel our gifts as well. So, how would you say it differs from the masculine?
Ooh, I heard this probably a couple years ago from one of my mentors, and it's always resonated. Masculine energy is very much like the riverbed,
Mm,
and the feminine energy is very much like the water that flows through.
mm,
And so the feminine energy is something that can be less controlled. It's something that you just trust, and it's something that when you embody it, it can be soft, but it can also be raging and powerful. And there's so many different deities that you look at, you look at Kali in being a feminine energy, right? And
yeah.
in burning everything down. And sometimes that's literally what feminine energy is. And like in a past relationship, I felt like I was going insane because everything was just falling apart. And I was having to make all of these decisions, but it was really like me being called up into my divine feminine because they're
Mm,
like, you have to make the choice. The being an indecision literally blocks your feminine energy because it's that flow. It's just trusting and making a choice and saying, this is what I'm going with, and then allowing kind of everything to unfold after that. And that's more of what the feminine is, whereas the masculine is that like schedule, right? And I've been playing with this where I'm like creating a schedule for myself the night before because I'm like, I need to like have a plan. I've learned that like as a business owner and entrepreneur, I have to have a plan for my next day. Otherwise, I spend like the first 2 hours of my day going, what do I do? What do I
yeah.
do? And I'm like, I know there's so much to be done, but I'm just kind of like floating all over the place. And so if I give myself that structure and I'm like, nope, this is what we're looking at, this is what we're going to do. We're going to aim for a walk in the afternoon. I'm going to try and get my movement in. We're going to try and eat hopefully before 3 p.m. And just kind of setting that up for myself. So that way, when it comes down to the creation part, whether it's a YouTube video, whether it's something for Instagram, or, if I've got a client session, like I give myself time to be able to flow within that. And that flow right there is the feminine energy. It's just the trust of, I'm just going to let whatever comes through come through. And with me being such an emotional person, and I truly think feeling deep emotions is my deepest gift, and allowing that to like move through me. Whenever I allow myself to like get into that like feminine emotional state and emotional
Mm,
rage, I go through 10 minutes of just like raging or crying or just whatever. And then I'm able to be like, okay, moving on. Like, let's go to the next thing. Or what do I need to do to channel this into it? What lessons have I learned within this emotional space that can be shared that other people maybe need to hear? And so I would say with the feminine energy, that's exactly what that is. It's trusting yourself and it's allowing yourself to maybe sometimes be soft, maybe sometimes say the hard things that people don't want to hear, because that's part of it. Like, that's the tower moment of the burning everything down. Like, clients coming to me, they don't want to just hear, like, okay, like we balanced all your chakras, here you are. And so that's why in my sessions, like part of what I do is I channel, and then the guides always give them information of like what to do next, how to stay in that vibration that like I've just risen their vibration. And how do we stay there? How do we, whether it's for weight loss or like wanting to attract a partner in, like what are things that are tangible that you can do in the 3D world that the guides have already basically aligned your energy body with?
Yeah, wow. No, that is so profound actually. Like the fact that it's not just about balancing ourselves, it's also this assertive quality that really is so needed to kind of portray our feminine energy. And I think there's a more social media based terms which are like dark feminine and light feminine energy, you know. And the dark feminine is a bit more like, you know, sassy, setting boundaries and saying, you know what, I won't take this shit, which is equally important as this more light, you know, more um someone who's a bit more yes, both of them are going with the flow, but one is a bit more protective, you know, a bit more
Hmm.
leading with discernment, leading with actually, let's just check these facts a bit more. You know, we can't trust this person completely, but once we do, we can allow the flow to occur fully. So I do get that quite a lot. And I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with this as well, with the structure bit, you know, especially
Hmm.
when it's like, okay, I could have a session then. You want to try and fit as many people as you can, but also you don't want to like, you know, go overboard so that your feminine energy is not flowing as easily. Like you said, this time to just meditate right before is so important, or simply connecting with yourself to be able to um, give your clients the best service possible. And that is so important to allow that time as well. I know there are quite a few entrepreneurs who are watching this, you know, or healers who are wanting to also go into the space. So I'm sure it will benefit them as well, knowing how to balance your masculine and feminine energies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because, like, based on the trauma that I had as a child and just
Mm.
growing up, like, I wanted to control everything, like, everything. And it's so unhealthy because you just can't. Like, you can't control people.
Yeah.
You can't make people understand you. Like, there was so much that I was just like trying to control. And so once I really started healing and started letting that go, it was really uncomfortable, but it also made me be more careful about who I was around because I'm not in a place of like trying to manipulate people for my safety. And, I was unconsciously doing that. But when it came down to it, like I needed to be able to trust that the people around me could hold me and
Yeah.
allow myself to feel safe to be in my feminine. And it's always interesting the way it works because it's like I was so far over here in the disempowered masculine that it swung over to this way and I was just a puddle because there wasn't any of that masculine structure allowing me to flow through. And there was definitely a time where I just needed to be a puddle and I needed to be taken care of. But then it came to the point where it's like, okay, now we're stepping into that like motherly energy of I love you, but like this is the hard truth.
Yeah.
And so it's like, thank you for coming for this session, but like this is the hard truth that you need to hear, whether it's like you're looking at yourself in a different way or there's some sessions where like someone's completely disconnected from their body and I'm like re-putting their soul back in and I'm saying, hey, here's some ways you can stay in your body because I understand it's uncomfortable as we age. Like it's it's a weird age is a weird concept to me that's like really been messing with me this year because it's like as I get older, my body's different and I feel a little different, but
Yeah.
in my mind I'm still like who let me be in charge? Like who decided that? And so it's like really allowing myself to see like the wrinkles on my forehead and say it's okay. Like, like I still am me, even if I don't look exactly the same as my mental age feels, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I forget that. Like I'm now in my 30s, and sometimes it's like there is a shift, of course, from like 20s to 30s, but you do feel like, well, actually it feels kind of like the same, but also your body is telling a different story, just like your metabolism and the way you are able to do sports as well. You know, I've definitely found that to change quite a bit. Like the way
Mhm.
I do sports, I'm now a lot more into. more yoga, Pilates, and I just exactly how you said, like I swung from a very wounded masculine as well. I was doing a lot of hustle, like going from like corporate world and hustling, and also really I used to do this sport called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which was amazing. It
Hmm.
really allowed me to feel good, but I started doing it in a bit more like, I'm going to go 5 days a week. I'm going to get this next step, and it kind of became more of a hustle because it was a very male dominated um, sport. And
Hmm.
so I was like, I've got to keep up with them, I've got to like push through, when realizing actually our bodies are completely different. And, especially with our cycles, we really got to make sure that we work with them, because there's no point in competing with sort of the men. It's a complete different system, and our hormones are completely different. So I do get that. I was swung from like complete wounded masculine energy to like this feminine energy without structure, and then kind of feeling a bit anxious, like why don't I have like a solid structure around me where I can like flow, because it was just almost like a mess.
Yeah. It can be. And that's the thing about feminine energy is like as you're moving into it, sometimes initially it very
Mm,
much feels like, what am I even doing? Like, I remember I was at an event last year with my mentor, and
mm.
I was like, why do I cry all the time? Like, why am I just like, when is it going to stop? Like at that
Yeah.
point, I was 4 years into my healing journey, and she's like, she's like, you held it in for years. Like, I just turned 36 this year. So it's like, think about how long you held it in and how much needs to be released. And so allowing the emotions to move through me and just not judge them and say, it's okay. Like, this doesn't mean anything about me. Sometimes it's like, it just gives me something to look at and say,
Mm,
how can I support myself is the most important thing that I come back to, because it's like it's not anybody else's responsibility to fix my emotions. It's for me to hold that space for myself and say, this is what I need, and communicate that with people in my life and say, this is what I need right now. And I just, whether it's space, or I need to go on a walk, or I just need to get some sleep, or I need to lay in the sun, or I need to meditate for a little bit. Like allowing myself to speak up and communicate that is like one of the most powerful ways that like you can stand in your feminine, because it's you just standing up and saying, "Hey, this is what I need right now." Instead of kind of allowing it just to kind of blow you around.
totally, totally. And I think yeah, sort of our throat chakra really needs to be able to flow. I know for me it took a long time, especially growing up in a certain culture, which you kind of grow up really making sure others are okay before kind of being
Mhm.
polite, and being this person who doesn't appear too much. You're just in the confines of this mold that you're given, and I'm sure a lot of women will resonate this mold, and then you can't kind of go out of this mold, and eventually you reach this breaking point, and it just, you start flowing with it, like you said, you couldn't stop crying, and you reach a certain point where it's like, okay, it just it just needs to come out now.
Yeah.
It's now time to kind of break free from that more people pleasing, kind of doing what you are told, thinking of others before you, um and it served its purpose at a younger age, perhaps, just because it's a survival mechanism. um but now, when you have the space in certain healing modalities, or a space to like, just different circles that you can go to, it really allows you to be able to let that out.
Hmm. Well, and it's always interesting. Like, I have some clients that will come on the table and I'll start sending them healing. And I always let people know, like,
Mm,
everyone's experience is different. Like, if you start having emotions, like, or if you need to move, like, do whatever you need to do. Like,
mm,
I can tell you the general of what you might experience, but it's so unique to each person. that it's
Yeah.
hard to give that. And anytime I see someone like holding tears back, like you'll see it like the squished face or just like one or two tears, I always place a hand on their shoulder and I'm like, it's okay. Like you're in a safe space, like, and you can let it go. And I've had people cry and just like sob on my table. And so it's
Mhm.
like they always feel so much better after that because it's that release of like what they've been holding on to. And a lot of the times that that happens, someone had some sort of pain expressing in their body, and then the next day they're like, the pain's like almost completely gone. And so that emotional wound was almost like attached to it. And so it just
Wow.
completely moves it out for them. But like even men, when we're talking about masculine and feminine, like men and women both have the masculine and feminine within them. So it's like as men start to open up, with an empowered feminine and they're like, okay, I feel safe. It's like you'll see that they're more emotional. And it's like it's all of this stuff that they've pushed down that they're finally letting come up and letting it release. And all it is about you being in the safe space for it.
Mm.
Because like for me, not only do I feel deeply, but I'm like reconnecting with a gift that I realized I had as a child and I've seen it throughout my life where someone will say something, but like I really see the underlying feeling and I can see the vulnerability in it. I don't really know how to explain it outwardly, but it's like someone will say something either as a joke or like they'll say it as like a blanket statement, but like I see the wound underneath it or see like why they're actually saying it. And
Yeah.
so it creates this like place of compassion for me, but it's not my responsibility to like drag it out of them. But having that ability to see these emotions, like I just kind of see them and sometimes like just give them a hug, and just kind of
Mm.
allow them to be seen for that moment or just support them in that moment because it's like everybody needs to move through it. Like the more that we hold emotion in our body and the more that we suppress it, the further it disconnects ourselves from ourselves because it's like your body's saying, hey, or your soul's like, I'm upset, like we need to get this out, or angry, or whatever. And so
Yeah.
when we suppress it and hold it in our body, it's almost like our soul's like, fine, you're not going to listen, I'm not going to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I had an experience once because I used to be a self-defense instructor, and I had this woman come in, and I was teaching her a certain move, and she kind of did this like it was kind of like a punch kick move, and I mean, self-defense is not just about the kicks and moves, but they always make it fun. A lot of women feel empowered, so why not? She did this move, and she started to cry, and she said, "Oh my gosh, this." Actually worked, like this technique actually worked, and she felt like, well, I like you said, you kind of like pick up that underlying emotion, like it just felt like a release that just
Hmm.
happened for her. And that release was so visible that she must have held it in for so long, and then finally she felt safe enough and then empowered enough through her body movement to be able to kind of let it out or release. um yeah, which is I love the combination of, everything like healing modalities and movement, and it's just the combination of everything that really allows you to heal in um multidimensional ways, I suppose, kind of. It's not just it's yeah, it's not just kind of sitting there and kind of like just letting emotions out either, but it's more like, okay, this works for me, I'm going to let it out now. Okay, for now, if I try this, oh, it's just automatically released. And
Hmm.
I think you mentioned about like a certain ailment in the body goes away once you start to release a certain emotion. This is so, so true. I've had that experience with one of my clients in Reiki session as well, when they start, once they are receiving this treatment, and suddenly they start kind of like crying, or they start to, and you can tell they're going back to a certain memory or certain scenario that is popping up in their mind, and it's really kind of, if I have my hands placed on their heart, kind of just hovering above the heart, so it's like feeling like, okay, something is being released, something is happening. And yeah, yeah, it's just it's a way to like allow that flow to happen. Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Well, let's quickly talk about burnout and stress,
Yeah.
because I'm sure, I'm sure that this is something that I sometimes still struggle with it, and I have to really remind myself that, especially as entrepreneurs, we're kind of like, I can just fit it more in, there's not necessarily a 5 o'clock stop button. It's
Mhm.
more, it's all ourselves. What are your practices for making sure you don't burn out, or if you're hitting a peak kind of moment, how do you kind of like counteract that? How do you deal with that?
Yeah. Um, having the plan in place helps for kind of like the structure in my day. Like if I'm feeling overwhelmed because I've got 20 tasks, I prioritize them, and then I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, these have to get done. These can be done tomorrow or the next day. That way I'm not looking at this because I found when I was just doing to-do lists on one page, it was like I was so overwhelmed, my body was just going straight into freeze. And I was like, well, I can't do anything now. So it's complete waste. So
yeah,
with making lists and kind of breaking it out through the week, and, this week's a really weird week since it's a holiday week. I'm traveling to Florida to work a triathlon on
okay,
Thursday. So I just like getting everything done at the front end of my week. Even yesterday, I was feeling anxious. So I'm like, okay, how can I connect with this and really move forward? And so there was some self connection there. There's a plan. And then today I was like, okay, like I can dance, I can move, I can get that through. And then tomorrow I don't really have a ton on my to-do list. So I'm like, I'm going to connect with myself. Like I'm going to do everything to make myself feel my best so that way I can move through. And sometimes it's hard where there's like deadlines where you've got to get something in by a certain time, or you need to get something done by a certain time. And so it's like when you prioritize things, you're like, nope, this is the top of my list. This is something that we need to do. And then also allowing yourself to let go of things sometimes whenever it's
mm,
not serving you. And, I'll use my podcast as an example. Like, I'm finally in the space where I'm like, okay, I've got space to do this again. I've got space to record and to have guests come back and to edit because it can be so much work, right? Like, and with YouTube videos, I set the intention where I'm not going to over analyze it or I'm not going to over edit. I'm literally just going to go on, speak, and then post. Because
yeah,
when I set that intention, it's giving myself the freedom to be imperfect, and it's taking that stress away because that's something that really leads to burnout for me. It leads to burnout and it leads to just being frozen. So allowing myself this space to like drop things when I can't do them, because as a manifesting generator anyway, like that's something that I really have to lean into is, okay, what's lighting me up right now? And initially, when I wasn't posting podcast episodes regularly, man, I was hard on myself. And I had to stop and
yes,
say, Jillian, that does not mean anything about you. Like, that doesn't mean the podcast is over. It doesn't mean you're never going to come back to it. But, like, right now, I don't have space for it. And that's okay. And, even as being a mom and having a partner, like, I want to make sure that I'm showing up at home too. So, where can I like allow myself to be supported by my partner? Or, my son's 15. Where can I be like, hey, this is your chore now? Like, this is something that we're giving you as a responsibility so that I'm not just taking everything on my plate. Because in the past, like in that super like controlling masculine, I'm like, I'll just do everything. I'll just figure it
yeah,
out. I've got it all. When in reality, like it's just not sustainable.
yeah,
And so, really, just prioritizing what you want to get done, getting curious about yourself, like even I use the genetic blueprints as a way for people to connect with themselves deeper. And I think through like numerology or human design, like or astrology, there's so many things that you can learn about yourself and say, hey, nothing's wrong with me. Like people watch me sometimes and they're like, you are so chaotic. Like watch me clean a house and I will have 10 tasks going on at the same time. And sometimes not all of them get finished in the same day, but like they will get finished. Just let me go through my process. Like I'm here now and then I move somewhere else. And so just going through that way and allowing myself to be instead of placing judgment on myself for saying like that's wrong or that's the wrong way to be. It's like when you're feeling stressed, allowing yourself to hold that space for yourself and asking yourself, what do I need right now? Do I need to go sit in the sun? Do I need to dance? Do I need to sing? Do I need to meditate? Do I need to go on a walk? Do I need to go to the gym? What do I need to move this through my body so that
Yeah.
way I can come back to me and say, all right, we've got a fresh plate. Let's try again.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, absolutely. I think the one that technique I've been using recently has been I'm just gonna do 3 tasks in a day. Like you, I'm a manifesting generator as well, 6 2. So
Same.
it's yeah, and it's like everything is a priority.
Yeah.
Everything looks good, and it's yeah, oftentimes has led me to burnout, and especially I think comparison with just looking at other people's profiles, perhaps, oh my gosh, they are ahead, they're putting out content all the time, how can I match up to that? And you try and match up to it, and then you realize you're starting to burn out. And that's because often your energy system right now is not meant to be in that place to give your full energy to that. It's meant to be dedicated somewhere else. And we compare it for someone else who probably is doing that one thing only. They're not
Hmm.
actually doing all the other multiple things. And especially if you have a partner and you have kids, it's yeah, it's a whole another story. And yeah, definitely what I found, I had to be really strict with myself and say, no, not everything needs to be done and not everything needs to be perfect. And just having three
Hmm.
priorities per day. And if I get those done, it's a win. And if something else on top of that gets done, that's a big, big win. Um, and if those don't get done, then it's okay. It's still okay. We can still decide to actually pick that up on another day. And especially as a setting our own times, it's the deadlines are imposed on us by ourselves.
Hmm.
So yeah, often quite hard to break out of that.
Yeah. And well, and to stick to them sometimes I think can be really
Yeah,
difficult. But there's been something that I've had to do, and it's almost like I take the time to celebrate the things that I complete, right?
mm,
Like, because sometimes it's like when you're your own boss or you're an entrepreneur, it's just like, all right, got the task done, cool, on to the next. Instead of like being like, hey, I created a friggin' podcast or
yeah,
I created a YouTube channel. Like, that's awesome. Like, in kind of doing something small for yourself, whether it's like, I'm going to take myself to get coffee or I'm going to have a like sweet treat that I normally wouldn't have. Like, it really allows yourself to celebrate you and to be like, okay, I'm not just like, I love checking things off a list. Like, I really do. But having something else like at the end of the day, even if it's just like, okay, once I finish all of this, I'm going to go on a walk by myself and I'm going to listen to music or I'm going to listen to a podcast and I'm just going to like move however feels good to me. And that way you're able to like encourage yourself. And not everybody is rewards based, but
mm,
it helps. It helps. Or even like, I need to get these tasks done today, so I'm going to go work at a coffee shop because I want to change the energy. Sometimes, being in your own house can be so distracting because there's so much to do always. And
yeah,
like for me, it's the summer. So like my son's here. So he'll come ask me, like, can you take me to the gym? Like, yeah, let me finish this one thing real quick and then we can go. But then when I come back, I just pulled myself out of that like energetic groove so then I'm like, it takes me 20 more minutes to get back in.
yeah,
Or my dogs come in and they're cute. And so I'm just like, hi, like
yeah,
let me pet you. So like getting out of the energy of your day to day sometimes can make such a big difference to be able to just be
mm,
like, okay, I'm going to get these tasks done. We're going to knock them out. And then I'm free for the rest of the day and allowing yourself to do whatever feels good for you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I think one thing that I've been working on a lot more recently as well is that the idea of noting down where your energy is being leaked and kind of realizing actually where are you finding your energy just going to different things where it's probably like somewhere you need to either cut a cord or stopping that supply and which can be sometimes hard to know when you're in the kind of like go 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 mode and you kind of don't realize actually my energy has been leaking there. Actually, that can be dedicated more towards this. Do you use any specific practices, or how do you identify if you're finding, oh, okay, my energy is leaking here? And even the idea of sort of cutting cords more with the people and perhaps past situations. Do you have any, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I have a couple different ways.
Mhm.
The most tangible way, or like if someone likes to meditate, a great way is to just close your eyes and imagine your energy field. I'm always shown like almost like I can't remember what it's called, but the man with like all of the energy kind of moving around him.
Mhm.
It's a picture. And then you just take a deep breath in and you start to pull your energy up from your legs. And then you pull it up. If you can get it in one breath, that's great. If not, multiples are great too. And you just keep breathing until you feel your energy moving up. And then it comes out of the top of your head. And then you circle it back around down to your feet. And setting the intention that when you're doing that, it's plugging any holes, it's clearing any leaks, it's cutting any
Mm.
cords. That way you're able to fully remove it from your body and then you're back into your own energetic field.
Yeah.
Um, Another way for cutting cords that I love to do specifically with people is on paper. So it's setting the intention that you're cutting the cords, but you're basically drawing two people on a piece of paper. And I always just do
Mm.
stick people because my drawing is not exceptional. And then you draw the cord connecting them from the head, the heart, and the sacral.
Mhm.
And I'll show you my little
Oh.
picture. So you've got them here. You'll put the two names of each person, of yourself and the other person, and then you're gonna rip it. You're gonna cut the cords. So we cut it, right? And then we're gonna burn it just to fully like solidify that cords being cut, like I'm moving forward. Because
Yeah.
that way it's setting the intention energetically, and you can, some people need that physical, like burning or being able to see it with their in the 3D. And it's really interesting, but I actively like clear my own energy daily because
Mm.
sometimes, even in business, like we'll hold on to something because our ego really wants it to happen.
Yeah.
We'll use the podcast for an example. Like, if it were up to me, I would have posted me and my ego, I would have kept posting week to week and I would have been completely burnout. I wouldn't have had time for it. I would have started to resent it. And when I clear my field every single day and I cut cords every single day, things like cords to the podcast are dropping away. And so if they're not in alignment for that time being, or if they're not in a or if they're like not meant for me in that moment, it'll cut the cord and the cord won't grow back. Whereas,
Yeah.
and it's the same with relationships with people, right? And friendships. It's like you're clearing your energy that way. If someone's gossiping about you or talking about you and they're creating this cord and siphoning your own energy, you're literally going through and clearing it. And so if that's not for your highest and best, it's not going to grow back unless
Yeah.
you allow them back into your space. And so you start to see like, oh, and you'll notice certain feelings of like, nope, that's not for me anymore. Like it's truly not. And I didn't realize in my last relationship that I like created the beginning of the end through a high energy work, through cutting cords. And, in doing that, I eventually got to the point where it's like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I was so scared to say it, where I
Yeah.
had no choice but to say it and say, you know what, it's time. It's time for us to move on. We don't
Yeah.
need to be here anymore because it was so draining and it
Yeah.
was taking so much out of me. And so, like, once I made that decision, everything just changed. And
Yeah.
it's just really interesting to see the difference in how you feel once you like remove those cords.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna recommend the stick drawing to anyone out there because Mercury retrograde is just around the corner. So everyone
Yep.
get your papers out, get people that you want to cut cords from. Any exes, they might pop up in this time, so it's a great time to practice that as well. Um,
Yeah.
I often I really like that. I think the physical representation is really good. I haven't tried that, so this is something I'm gonna I'm going to definitely take on. I mean, I often tend to imagine the person that I'm thinking about, like maybe, more so than my energy, then I would like my energy to go towards them. And so what I tend to do is kind of just act like my fingers are scissors and kind of cutting the cords anywhere. Like I feel like where in my body is does it feel heavy? And if it's like
Mhm.
heart or sacral, I would just like try and snip, snip, snip everywhere. And so that has worked sort of like in a mental way, especially when I'm like overthinking about certain things, past situation or someone. I'm like, okay, no, 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 this is something like just the act of like doing that really helps. But I definitely need to try out your paper method as well. I think this, and burning the paper. So I think this is going to help for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I,
Well, and it's interesting because some people are so disconnected from their bodies initially and
yeah,
like at the beginning of the healing journey. So, like, if they're wanting to cut cords more frequently, or they're like, I just feel like my energy is being sucked out from this person, like
yeah,
allowing them that very 3D way of like, no, okay, if you can't feel it in your body, like the most common places are going to be your third eye, your throat, your heart, your sacral. And so, cutting those and just saying, all right, that's it, they don't get anymore, is huge. And so just allowing yourself to see it and then like allowing you to burn it. I very much believe in like burning things or getting rid of things like old journals or things like that, because it's like they carry this energy that we don't need anymore. And so just to throw the paper away, like, yeah, you could, but like it's still there.
yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I do get what you mean. Yeah, I did that with my old journals. I literally burnt them and it felt so ritualistic and felt like, all right, this is out of my energy now. And you kind of feel the release. You feel like a weight has been lifted off of you.
Hmm.
And and that is the exact feeling that we're going for, especially being sensitive and being an intuitive, that is your number one strength. So often to be able to channel those gifts that you have, the intuitive gifts, all of these practices, and are crucial for people like us, because otherwise we can't really function. And like I can't, I need to, often I find if there's something going on, I'm not concentrating, or I want to put out this piece of content, but something not flowing, what is happening, kind of checking in with myself. Okay, energy maybe is leaking there, or, or perhaps just shake it out, going back full circle, or perhaps it's actually just that it's not time, I just need to do a heavier release, or there's some sort of like wound or trigger coming up that needs to be addressed. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Absolutely. And it's interesting because it's like sometimes even if you're trying to do something and you're like, this person keeps coming up. This person keeps
yeah.
coming up. I'm always quick. Like if someone's coming up into my energetic field frequently, I'll reach out. I'm like, hey, you okay? What's going on? Or like, just how
Okay.
are
Yeah,
you? And they'll either be like, oh my God, I was just thinking about you, or
yeah,
that they're just like, oh, how'd you know something was wrong? And I'm like, I just, intuitive hit and I was trying to get something else done and you just kept coming up into my space. And so I just wanted to see what was going on. And people are always super grateful for it. And so I think sometimes we, like, as a
yeah,
society, we're like, oh, don't want to bother them, or like maybe I don't know them that well. So, like, I'm not going to say anything. But I've always allowed myself to honor my intuition in those moments and just saying, hey, just thinking about you, everything okay? And then just kind of allowing like everything else to unfold without expectation, because once I get past that, then I'm like, all right, now I can get back to the task at hand. It's like that needed to happen, that energy had to clear, and then I could move forward.
yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah, that's that's helped me so much in the past as well. Yeah, definitely. Well, we're always coming to an hour. I could keep talking to you for like ages, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there's so many other topics that I want to ask you about and stuff. But just to finish it off, where can people find you? How can people find your services?
Yeah, absolutely. My website is www.5dimensionalwellness.com, and the five
Mhm.
is spelled out. You can also find me on Instagram, either on my personal Instagram, which is here at underscore Jillian underscore Warren underscore, or on my business Instagram. I'm trying to post more there. And so that's at five, not spelled out, dimensional wellness. And
Yeah.
on YouTube, Five Dimensional Wellness is my tag there as well. And my podcast is Expanding the Conversation with Jillian.
Well, that episode got cut out exactly at 1 hour because it was an Instagram live, and I did not know that Instagram lives have a limit of 1 hour exactly. But here we are. I'm sure you got a ton of tips in that episode. I sure did, and I learned a lot about what Jillian does and the world of healing, which I'm always interested about. And I hope you get to learn more about it too. And if you're interested in finding out more, make sure to follow Jillian and myself on Instagram as well, where I tend to share a lot more, a lot deeper tips and just more day to day content, which can be really helpful to you. And that's where you find out more about our lives and offers and everything that is great. So do check that out. And if you like this episode, make sure to give it a like and subscribe, and do send it off and share it with other people who may benefit from all this work, because I love doing it. I love sharing all these healing modalities and just tips to make your life the best life that you can live, and make it better in any way possible, and especially in terms of healing. So, yeah, if you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.